And we're working. Work. All right, welcome back. Hope you're having a good day. I'm going to update all 3 of my willow leaf trees today. This is the only normal cutting I've ever gotten to take. The next tree I'm going to look at is the root cutting that I've gotten to take. And then, of course, I'll look at the mother tree. I've tried all kinds of smaller cuttings from the mother tree. This was actually the big chop that I did on the mother tree. I'll show you the scar where this guy came from when I get there. But while I've got this one in here, look at the other side here. This side is looking, a little more tree-like, if you will, without that scar. That is actually the side that was like facing the tree, if you will. And then this side here has been able to bark itself up. This one's almost all the way barked over. That was all dead wood in there. It's some good scar tissue. And part of the reason I haven't really done much with it is I did want to let it grow freely as much as possible to try and go ahead and take care of all that dead wood that was down there. I don't want dead wood on a tropical, so I've just been letting it envelop itself. We are kind of ending, our growing season isn't ending for a little while, but our season where it grows a lot. About 3-4 weeks ago, this thing was actually covered with fruit. Thought about doing a quick video of it then, but then about the time it turns kind of yellowish to where you can really see it, they all just kind of drop off. So I'm going to do just a little prune. There's a bunch of these lower branches. I say a bunch. They've got a twig or two that's just kind of sticking straight up. And then up here in the apex, this could be shortened down quite a bit. And that would have been a bar branch with that, had I let that go. And then what I'll do, this is just right now the actual top of the apex. I'm going to go ahead and just take it down to that second branch there. Keep it nice and short. That should allow lower branches to keep spreading out. And then just keep some taper going in the rest of the tree. Let's go ahead and bring that root cutting in here. Alright, this is a root cutting. You can see quite a bit of growth on here. I just took this root cutting, I think it was approximately a year ago. Now, this was a root, basically came up to here, and then the root itself goes all the way down, almost to the bottom of this pot. People with more experience than I say that when you take a root cutting, you can never really get that good of a nabari. So what I'm going to do with this is, because I have this in such a tall pot, and those roots do extend down there, eventually I'm going to start cutting the pot down and see if maybe an exposed root might work for it. And then see, like as I kind of work my way down in this pot, then maybe plant it in something else deeper, let it grow some new roots, and allow those roots to be the exposed ones. But we'll just kind of see how things go. Let's get a little bit of a closer look at it here. All right, a little bit closer for you guys. So you can probably see, and I got the top of it just out of the picture, really isn't much up there. It's just the very top. Just trying to give you guys a little bit of a better look at my thought process here. This piece just kind of shot up, went really straight. I could have wired it some as I went. I could have been chopping as it went too, but I did want to just make sure I just let it get some momentum going there. This piece, almost as strong as that one. And I'm off to the side, a little bit of movement and everything, and I got a little piece below it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop it here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to prep it first to try to make it to where I can try one more cutting from it. So when I was new to the plant world, a lot of that was actually introduced with me helping my mom with some vegetable gardening and stuff. And you would, mostly take cuttings from green growth like that, where the stem would be still really green and soft, Don't really remember what a lot of them were, and you put them in a little pot to get them started, and eventually out in the garden. I have found that part of what I've had more luck with in taking cuttings is actually thicker cuttings. I don't know if it's just me, the way I do it. I don't know what the deal is there. Because, I've had, with my microcarpa, I probably had like a 90% strike rate. Benjaminas around 100%. My Patrices about 100%. I mean, this, with the willow leaf, I probably had like 10% because everything I've tried to do just has not made it yet. The only thing I've had make it is this root cutting and then that tree I just had in here. So what I'm going to do, since I am planning on cutting this pretty deep here, first I'll go ahead and just take off the tallest shoot here. If I was trying to sell these or anything, I might have tried to get, 2 or 3 cuttings out of it, but I'm just going to try just to get one. So that's all I'm really concerned with. Take that off and just kind of get it out of the way. And then I think what the idea is, it's really hot right now, and so I don't really want, if it was springtime, I might try to save the bigger one here. But it's really hot. I'm worried about, water uptake, things like that. I think I'll take that off. That one's a little big too, I think. And then that leaves me with, once I take this off, this I'm actually leaving on. Once I take that off, that's going to leave me those 2 branches there. I'm going to defoliate them real quick and leave the growing tip. Alright, so something about like that. Growing tip should signal it to push out roots. First time I've ever actually used these. These came out of that Zellerman toolkit. Alright, got a little bit of rooting hormone in here. One nice thing about that ficus sap is you don't have to worry about it sticking. It stays so wet. It just sticks right to it. And then as much as I hate these pots here, these pots, if you fill them any higher than that, they just get so top heavy they start falling all over the place. But I think it's a nice deep one just to kind of get a good start here. I have a mixture of potting soil and good substrate in there. And then, so I only have the substrate up to about there. So I was able to kind of push it in. I didn't want to push it in too far. And then also, I can just kind of use those 2 branches there, lean it up against the side. That way it won't move anywhere. I have this where it only gets just a couple seconds of morning sun. I say a couple seconds, maybe like a half an hour or something like that. And then just shady and humid the rest of the day. Leaving this as a little bit of an insurance here. If I was going to try to use this as a branch, I would hope I'd get that to sprout a new one. But since I want that just to be its leader with some movement, I'm going to go ahead and take the knob cutters here and just get a little bit closer. Make that easier to heal up. I've mentioned it a time or two, I don't use cut paste. I've had no issue with my wounds healing. Unless, of course, they're huge, in which I don't think cut paste will help out all that much. Feel free to use whatever you want to use. I just don't. And what I did, I wrapped it around the trunk a couple times, and I got it up to about here. I didn't really want to come up here. I want that to, I want to make sure it's growing. Try not to get too terribly tight with it, but I did have to go around these other branches. I meant to point out, it's one of the reasons I decided to keep this too, is this already had plenty of other branches coming off of it. It wasn't just the shoot. What I'm going to do is just go ahead try to get that as deep as possible. Looking a little S-curve like, but part of the, I might even go ahead and just straighten that up right at the end there. Yeah, should have let it grow a little bit better, but as this, as this grows, I'll have to keep an eye on this because this tree is growing really well. I didn't take any growing tips off up here, so it should really rocket out of there. But as I take that off, and when the wire's off there and it gets ready to grow freely again, it really should soften up quite a bit. It won't quite be that obvious of an S-curve there. And speaking of not taking the growing tips off, I think I will take, I think I'll go ahead and take it down to just about above where I had the wire at there. Leave these other growing tips in place, but that should signal it to back bud a little bit. We'll see what happens with this guy. At the very least, I've always got this guy down here. I'm sure that'll really grow now that I did the big chop. So if I have to, I can always chop it lower again. Alright, and then here we've got the mother tree. Before I start talking too much, just get a look at it all the way around. Sometimes my 54-year-old eyes aren't really all that sure what'll focus in really well on the camera and what won't. So I'll just go ahead and bring them right on in. Lots of little clusters of fruit on this guy right now. They're all just kind of hidden by the leaves, so not all that easy to see once they have the leaves all around them. Little cluster there. So I repotted this just about a year ago, and we are about coming up on like in 2 months we'll be at the anniversary of the hurricane. So after the hurricane, it really wasn't looking all that great. And then we had, you know, a couple months after that, we had that near freeze. And I tell you what, for a little while, this thing only had a couple yellow leaves here and there. I came close to taking the wire off, and I decided not to. Just the state of the tree, it almost seemed like that would be disturbing it too much, so I just left the wire on there. And then this spring, when it first started to recover, you'll probably be able to see it better once I prune it. But right here, this branch right here, there's some wire you may have noticed that's kind of like to nothing. I had to take the wire off of this branch right here. This branch had the worst case of just scale, and I don't know what else was on there, but there was just ants covering it. One day I just kind of noticed the base of the tree was just covered in ants, and I kind of wondered, what is this going on? This was very early spring, and then I just followed them up here. They were all coming to just this one branch. There wasn't anywhere else. There was just a little couple pieces on the main trunk where there was some scale, and this branch, just every square inch of it, if you will, was just covered in scale. I took the wire off and kind of descaled it, and then it just kind of had some other issues. It was just, the root cutting out there was just growing and, growing. It looked like an inch every other week or something like that. And then this thing was just barely putting out a little leaf here and there. And then just about a month ago, it started looking really good. You can probably tell just from looking at it that it's recovered completely. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and take this wire off. It has been on here for a year. I'm going to expect to see some bite. Probably should have went ahead and done this a little bit earlier. Hindsight is always 20/20. All right, wire's off. You can see plenty of bite, but it really wasn't too bad. I was going to try to show you in a few places where I had wired out to the end of the tree, or the end of the branch. Here's actually a little place right here. And then there's a little bit of dieback, and that it got some sprouts back towards the tree, but then it just died back to like the last place, where there's like a wire coil or something like that. I am going to give it a hard prune, I think. It's the first time I've really done that in a long time. First, this is, right there is the scar where that first tree actually came from. When I saw it sprout right there, I figured I'd let it go for the time being, but I can't really allow that to become a branch as it would be right next to that. So I'm just going to peel that guy off. It's just a little sprout. I can get it with my fingers there. And then while I'm here, I am going to hit that with the Dremel real quick. Alright, give you guys just a little bit of a better look. I didn't try to work the outside anymore in that. In some angles that you look at it, it almost still just looks like a straight chop and not really rolling that way much. But what I did was I just tried to go in and just smooth off the other obvious tool marks you can see. And I think I'm just going to live with this being a scar that's just going to be there forever. I mean, by the time this tree is big enough to have rolled that over completely, that'll probably be about the time my kids are trying to look into selling my collection, because I'm I'm some tree fertilizer myself at that point. So when I did take that off, I mean, it really was necessary. You'd have to kind of go back and see how the trunk was coming off of there with a huge aerial root. It was just so much fatter than even this was down here when I did chop that off. It's kind of hard to explain. You'd have to go back and look. And I do have the pictures on the first few videos, but that was before I was making videos and everything. But I think I had my hopes up a little high that would actually heal. So now what I'm going to do is just try to make it look like a little more of a natural scar, not so much as a man-made scar. So we'll see how that ages from from that there. And now at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come around and take off every growing tip I see. And if that growing tip is growing straight back into the tree or straight up, I'll go ahead and take the entire branch off, like this one right here. Alright, so I guess that's about it. Was a couple of these longer pieces. Couldn't take the opportunity to cut back some. And we'll just see what that gives us. I would consider cutting some of this back, but again, that is right at the bottom of that scar. That's the only growth below that. And that scar would even look better if it had better taper. So if I leave more growth down here, that'll still allow the trunk to thicken up quite a bit. And, you know, a little bit of movement of those branches too. So it's not like it's just long and taperless. It does have some movement to it. So I did work this scar a little bit as well. Got lots of growing season left here. We'll see what it turns out like.